You heard of this guy called Ron DeSantis? They say he's right-leaning. Now, I don't know anything about that. I do know that he has a very peculiar taste in campaign ads or campaign promotional videos that his team retweets. So you remember how a little while ago he got in some hot water because he retweeted what was basically just like a 4chan poll meme video comp, how cool it is that Ron DeSantis hates gay people and Trump is cucked because he doesn't hate gay people as much? You remember that, right? And then it happened again, and like it led to a lot of backlash even within the GOP, because even within the GOP they were like, like optically, let's not do the whole, they didn't care for it as much. And then Ron DeSantis said he didn't apologize. Funny update on his campaign, by the way. So a little while ago, Ron DeSantis said that he would be changing his campaign strategy. He's gonna reevaluate his approach towards winning people over. Since this change in strategy, he has introduced and defended a new Florida educational curriculum which would argue that slavery provided some benefits to slaves. And I'm not kidding, this isn't the Ron DeSantis you knew, the guy who only ever talked about wokeness, all right? This is the new Ron DeSantis with a new strategy. He's going to look into Bud Light and threaten to sue them because they had a 40-second promoted video on Instagram for a transgender actress. This is his campaign shift, okay? Listen, Ron DeSantis has heard the people, heard their wishes. Don't talk about wokeness as much. Okay, I know what they want. They want me to double down, all right? We're actually going to sue Bud Light for having a 40-second advert on Instagram. Yeah, his argument is that the Anheuser-Busch, the parent company that owns Bud Light, has failed their investors because they lost money due to the boycott that Ron DeSantis promoted. So he's essentially arguing it is illegal, potentially, for them to have had a sponsored advert with a trans woman because I promoted a boycott and that caused their investors to lose money. That is actually what they're trying to do. So in case you ever wondered, like, again, is there genocidal intent against trans people? We're now at the level of, if you ever hire a trans person, potential future Republican presidents will try to sue your company because you worked with a trans person. What shot Anheuser-Busch's stock at anyway? Yeah, there's the consequence of the boycott. So their previous holding level at the beginning of the year was around $60, and then it was up to 65 at height. And now it's, oh, look at that. It's almost climbed back up to $60, the point that it was at before a small increase, right before the big dip from the boycott. It looks like more than it is because there was a spike right before the dip. But if you can visualize the spike being gone, because it only lasted about 2 months, then you can see this is actually a pretty, insubstantial change. So for this financial crime, Ron DeSantis is using the state of Florida as a vehicle to attempt to legally punish the leadership at Bud Light for the audacity of ever working with a trans person. DeSantis is below 20% nationally now. He's the next Jeb. Oh, it's working out so great for him, man. Oh my God. It's just working out so well. Remember when there was a real question of Trump versus DeSantis? And now it's like, billions must clap. Jeb. True. Jeb needs to run again, man. Get it out there. Now's the time. Jeb sweep. Take advantage of all of the lost interest in Trump. The funny thing is, by the way, is that this data reveals a very interesting shift in the numbers, which is that Ron DeSantis losing popularity does not directly translate into higher popularity for Trump. Isn't that odd? Like, Trump is holding it around 50% right now. I would have expected that as people lost interest in DeSantis, they would move over to Trump. But even within the GOP, it seems like a lot of the interest with DeSantis switched over to Ramaswamy. That's the guy we went over. He was the Indian guy, right? He's the one who acknowledges that we're causing climate change, and he actually likes it. He says it's good that climate change is happening. It's going down into the small cluster of people down here. which might be good because none of these people have a chance at beating Trump, but it also means that Trump isn't so popular within the GOP that people aren't looking for an alternative. Isn't that odd? I'll have to investigate this a little more because I would have expected Trump to be at 65% based on the dip in support for DeSantis. I don't think DeSantis is a very viable election strategy other than hoping Trump goes to prison. I still think Trump would win from prison against DeSantis with how poorly things are going for him. So anyway, DeSantis's new campaign strategy is being more fascist than before. Great. And in line with that, recently, and by recently I mean this morning, his team retweeted another great ad that was made by a fan of DeSantis's, which concluded in this frame. Right, that's a bunch of soldiers marching towards, that's called the Sonnengrad, right? A Nazi symbol superimposed over an emblem in the state of Florida. You might notice we have Ron DeSantis here in the front. So this was retweeted by Ron DeSantis' campaign. Now, I know what you're thinking. Was it on purpose? Because they did quickly delete it. Must have missed a frame there, right? That's what happened, right? Like they saw it was supportive of Ron DeSantis, they retweeted it, and then like somebody pointed out like, hey man, there's like one frame here, which is, let me show you the end of the video. So it's your typical like 4chan poll, you know, it's got like Wojaks, Trump is bad because he doesn't hate gay people, but DeSantis does hate gay people. Let me play the end of this here. I'm gonna mute it, copyright music. There we go. It wasn't one frame. It was like 8 seconds at the end of the video and the conclusion of the video, and impossible to miss. Literally impossible to miss. Not exactly subtle. It's, yeah, so they retweeted that, and then quickly deleted the retweet. If that was just a single frame that was spliced into the video for funsies from a 4chan troll, I could understand it being a legitimate mistake. That was not one frame spliced in, that was like the whole video. We're at 2K likes. Gang gang. There you go. That was like a huge chunk of the video. So what happened is, and I can't prove this is what happened, but I know anyway, because I know everything. The person who retweeted the video is a Nazi, and saw the Nazi symbol, and thought that was good. And then, someone else on the campaign team realized optics are a thing. Maybe let's be a little more quiet about it. And they deleted the retweet. That's it. That's it. Or they didn't know what the symbol means. I don't believe that for a goddamn second. The Ron DeSantis campaign team is just full of Nazis. Same is the case with so many far-right movements here. There are far-right movements that rep the fundamental ideological tenets of Nazism pretty much down to the core, consistently, through and through, and we already know that Ron DeSantis' campaign team has this weirdly, like, Zoomer Nazi pull slant. Yeah, I don't buy that for a goddamn second, not even a little bit. Oh yeah, here's just it's the second most famous Nazi symbol, and it was the conclusion of the video. I don't buy it. A campaign team retweeting it? Yeah, the DeSantis campaign team has indicated signs of being terminally online before, both in the stuff they directly produce and in the stuff they retweet from their fans. Keep in mind that a significant portion of the support that Ron DeSantis has online is from Nazis, because they recognize that Donald Trump isn't actually ideologically fascist, like internally, and rather just says fascist things and does fascist things because it wins him applause. That's why these like Nazi support Ron DeSantis campaign ads keep doing the same thing, which is where they open with Donald Trump being cucked. See? Look, here's a sad Wojak, right? Superimposed over Donald Trump and the queer flags, you know? See, because he's cucked, actually. He's weak. He's not a real advocate for the white man. See, he didn't do enough. And they see Ron DeSantis as a purer advocate for National Socialism because he's obviously farther right. So in that environment, I think it's perfectly okay to say that, yeah, they knew they were retweeting a Nazi propaganda video. I think that's okay. This image was displayed at a Second Amendment rally in Michigan with a guest speaker, Kyle Rittenhouse, last week. Guys, do you remember all those Nazis for DeSantis who were protesting outside Disney? There are Nazis all over the modern Republican movement, obviously. Like, it's not... Keep in mind that when I say all over, what I mean is they probably represent a significant portion. Not a majority, but a significant portion. 10%, 20%. But the more radically far-right a person is, the more politically actuated they are, the more likely they are to get involved in politics. That's just how it works across the board. And for that reason, we can assume a disproportionate far-right influence in the actual campaign staff, especially for DeSantis, man. It's not subtle. Do you think if it was a swastika, it still would have been retweeted? Sure. Again, this is not a subtle symbol. You do not have to be involved in politics for a short length of time to, like, recognize what this is. Keep in mind, the people who retweeted this were his campaign team. This wasn't like a group of randos. This wasn't like your oomphy accidentally retweeting something bad, okay? Like, obviously, when it comes to official campaign messaging, a higher degree of scrutiny is employed. Not only is it evil, it's stupid strategically. Remember what I said earlier? Remember what I said earlier with Spain? Remember what I said? I said, this is why if you're a fascist, you want to take total control of the country quickly. Because fascists are retarded and incompetent. And as a product of this, if they have power enough that they're visible, but not enough power to suspend democracy, so they're still subject to public opinion and accountable to it, you get stuff like this, where people are either stupid enough or unaware of the value of optics enough that they will associate themselves with stuff like this, because Ron DeSantis and his campaign team, and that is a fascist group there, making fools of themselves and thereby bleeding support. The only person in the Republican primary race who is not bleeding support and is relevant is, of course, Donald Trump, who is, again, ideologically not a fascist. He's just completely self-interested. But Donald Trump isn't like, going out of his way to hire a bunch of like neo-Nazi Zoomer staffers so that they can be retweeting propaganda like that, because it's just like, why would he be interested in this? It does make Trump look better. It does, yes. I would say that Trump is consequentially fascist, just not ideologically fascist. And most of the time, those two don't make much of a difference between each other, but in this instance, they do. Trump will hurt trans people basically just as much, though, if elected, right? No. Keep in mind, Trump literally said at a recent gathering, people now go wild when I go after the trans stuff. None of you even cared 5 years ago. You don't even know. Like, he's indicated publicly that he doesn't really care about all the anti-trans fear-mongering. He genuinely does. He's said, like, even to his own political detriment, he said, yeah, I don't know why you all freak out over this now. I don't get it. I used to talk about bringing jobs back to America. Now all you want to hear about is woke this, woke that. He said this. Ron DeSantis, a couple of days ago, said that he was going to use his powers as the governor to investigate and potentially sue a company because they hired a trans woman. Not even hired her. Did a sponsored post with a trans woman. That's it. The levels of hatred present here are incomparable. Trump does not care about trans people. In fact, if you could give him some sloppy toppy and you're trans, he would probably, at least for the duration of that, think at least somewhat positive things about them. Totally self-interested. Ron DeSantis would masturbate while watching you all get shot in the back of the head. I cannot begin to tell you how much Donald Trump doesn't care about watching you guys get shot in the back of the head. He doesn't. He just doesn't. It's not that he's, like, concerned for your well-being. It just doesn't interest him. He could be doing anything else. He certainly wouldn't masturbate to it the way that Ron DeSantis definitely would and probably has. Yes, I did at the beginning, humanist communist. Yeah, that's often the case with countries with the long history of fascist occupation, Dave Rubin. Who's more predictable? Trump versus DeSantis? DeSantis is more predictable. DeSantis is literally nothing other than woke, culture war. DeSantis is completely locked in. He's got like nothing, you know? Trump's a wild card. Vosh, both Trump and DeSantis would put the same types of people in their respective cabinets. Any difference between them on trans stuff would be negligible because of that? Nope, disagree. Fully. First of all, because we have a constantly strangled legislature, most of the actual stuff that Donald Trump did was through executive action, and that difference would be massive between Trump and DeSantis. And for two, again, like, I just don't think, if you take a look at most of the people that Trump had as cabinet leads during his presidency, and most of the people he promoted, I feel like there was way more of a tendency towards, like, I guess, like, radical neoconservatism than there was outright reactionary fascism. Like, when I think of a Donald Trump cabinet appointee, I think of, Betsy DeVos, right? oh, let's defund all the Department of Education. Everyone will go to a private school, blah, blah. You know, I'm from a billionaire family. I want to make so much money off of it. You're all going to be poor, blah, blah. You know, but I feel like Ron DeSantis would just appoint a bunch of clan wizards. No, really though. Because he goes the next step. Ron DeSantis is a demon. Donald Trump is a billionaire, or at least he wishes he still was. The people that Donald Trump is associated with historically throughout his life have been neolibs and neocons. Throughout the Clinton years and onwards, you know, he wants to make a lot of money. He schmoozes up with other billionaires in New York. That's been his thing. That's his drive. That's his crowd. But Ron DeSantis, that's not his crowd. Ron DeSantis' crowd for a while was in the Navy, but since then has been an increasingly unhinged collection of fascists and outright neo-Nazis that have associated themselves with his campaign. Remember the Moms for Liberty group in Florida, who are Nazis? Remember? He literally endorsed this group of, like, Moms for Liberty or whatever, and in Florida, and they started loudly coughing during a moment of silence for like, the Holocaust, wasn't it? Like it literally was that explicit. It was somebody who was in a moment of silence for those who died in the Holocaust, and all these women were like, like that. And these people are directly associated with DeSantis. I really need to indicate, like, and I'll repeat this as many times as I need to, DeSantis and Trump are incomparable. The difference between an ideological fascist like DeSantis and an incidental fascist like Trump is so huge. And maybe I've been wrong, because 4 years ago, I don't think I would have said that. I think I would have said, well, consequentially, if you're a fascist, that's the end of it. It doesn't matter whether or not you believe it internally, but clearly it does, because incidental fascism does not go anywhere near as far as ideologically motivated fascism, because an incidental fascist like Trump might say fascist things to get applause, but that doesn't mean he's going to dedicate his entire life to the efficient enactment of fascist goals. It just means that he'll appeal to it like in an optics level. Whereas DeSantis would do fascist shit without getting any applause. He'll do it for fun. He'll do it for sexual gratification. He'll do it because he actually wants those things to happen, not just because he'll get praised for it. What made DeSantis lose steam so fast? No charisma, no campaign plan, no drive, nothing of interest. He made his whole campaign slogan, "Make America Florida Again." It's you know, he just has bad political instincts, which again, he's a fascist. Fascists are what is the number one thing that fascists fail to do time and time again? Rationally assess threats. They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't. They're ideologically incapable of doing it. They're not. That's just a thing they can't do. And thereby, Ron DeSantis can't read the room. The threat in this case, or the obstacle, or whatever, is the election chance, you know, the national interest. What can he do to win these people over? But he can't rationally assess it, which is why he doubles down and triples down and quadruples down. Woke, 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 woke. Polls come out showing that Republican voters are getting less interested in woke, 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 woke. But it doesn't matter because Ron DeSantis is committed, so he's going to keep woke, 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 woke. Do you think it's good for his national optics, him defending a, like, neutral position on slavery practically like for his local education board? Do you think that works like well abroad? Hey, here's a quick question. Do you think that business leaders in the United States of America, I mean ghouls, I mean billionaires, I mean people who we don't even know their names, do you think they like the idea of Ron DeSantis threatening to sue a massive company because they worked with one member of minority group? Do you think all of the massive conglomerates in America like the idea of the government, like, threatening them with massive financial penalties if they ever do anything that ends up being damaging to their financials, that lines up with an anti-woke agenda? No. This stuff does not work to his favor, but he can't help himself because he's a fascist. So he sees these opportunities to hurt people. And he radicalizes and motivates a small core group of people who get off on that shit, the fascists and Nazis in his cabinet. But that doesn't mean it works broadly, which I consider to be a sign of hope, personally. I don't get it. How does he justify persecuting working with a trans woman? His argument is that the state of Florida is going to investigate Bud Light because they're saying that by working with a trans woman, the loss in their stock prices they suffered, which were caused by a right-wing boycott that Ron DeSantis promoted, by the way, that was they failed in their fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders. By working with a trans woman, they should have known that it was going to lead to the massive backlash that Ron DeSantis caused in large part, and thereby it was them like criminally violating their responsibility to the shareholders. Now, this is, of course, insane. If they normalize this practice of, and by the way, there's no grounding for this. It's complete bullshit. It's not gonna, that's not legal what he's doing. But if that was a normalized practice, it would be a huge impediment to businesses' ability to advertise themselves, because they'd be worried that if they ever do something that the right decides is too woke, that they're going to have big government DeSantis breathing down their neck. So yeah, it's just not good. Yeah, the pension funds, not just the fiduciary responsibility. Yeah, the pension. I need to look more into the pension argument specifically. It's a fiduciary responsibility thing, specifically tied to the Florida pension program. It has something to do with the financials. I don't know exactly how it applies, but I don't think there's a legal grounding for it. I don't think there's a legal standing for it. Florida's CFO similarly blamed insurance companies leaving Florida on wokeness and Bud Light. Okay, yeah, stuff like this really does not indicate to corporate America that you're a good candidate to back, Donald Trump was a very pro-corporate candidate. He would have never even considered saying dumb shit like this. Yet another insurance company is pulling back from issuing policies in Florida following a string of natural disasters. The state's chief finance officer has accused the industry of pulling out due to wokeness. That's the level they're on. This is the level of brain damage that fascism causes in your mind. Natural disasters are ravaging Florida. An insurance company leaves because they don't feel the state is doing enough to protect their people from the natural disasters, so it's not financially viable to run an insurance company there. And their CFO is like, oh, they're leaving due to wokeness. Woke insurance companies. So thousands of Floridians lost their medical insurance, and then they look to see Ron DeSantis' CFO blaming wokeness because the constant environmental disasters that he doesn't do enough to protect them from are making it impossible to run insurance there. Oh, it's property, not private insurance? Oh, well, still, then they've lost their property insurance, not healthcare, sorry. AAA announced it would not renew the auto or homeowners policies in some customers in Florida. Look at this. AAA. That's not a small company, guys. AAA is like, yeah, sorry, we're not resuming insurance here because like your state's cooked. And DeSantis is like, oh, you're just saying that because you like blacks and trans. That's the level of like brain dead. This doesn't endear Ron DeSantis to anyone, but he can't help himself. He can't help himself. I keep making these like, they're not even jokes, they're real. But like I've said this before with regards to like they're not even aping Nazi policy appropriately, okay? Imagine if the Nazis, before Hitler was even appointed as chancellor, and before they even had like power and suspended democracy, imagine if Hitler was like, yeah, so like if you've worked with any immigrant, any Jew, anyone we don't like, any like that, yeah, we're gonna like sue your company and bankrupt you. If you've done any shit like that, we're gonna destroy your company. Do you think all the like industry and businesses and banks in Germany would have like even remotely backed his rise to power should that have happened? He actually did that? No. Hitler, he played down a lot of his crazy far right, like we're gonna literally destroy everything shit before he took power. You can actually look at some of the stuff that Hitler said like before he was appointed chancellor, and he was he hit his power level the same way a lot of Republicans do today, where he's like, listen, we just have questions and we just are concerned about the big lie and the loss of Germany in World War I. And we just think that, the Jewish people, but like, and then he gets power and then it's all like blood and soil shit, Vosh, I'm fucking German. I know my history. Hitler was a very open anti-Semite. Yeah, you're German, which means that if in line with any discussion relating to Hitler and the Holocaust, what you should be doing right now is apologizing to me for being fucking wrong. Twice over. Thank you. No. Hitler absolutely moderated his statements with regards to anti-Semitism and basically everything else when he felt it was optically beneficial for him. Obviously, he was an open anti-Semite. I'm not denying that. Anti-Semitism was pretty common across Europe at the time. But there's a pretty big difference between Hitler, purveyor of the Holocaust later on, and before chancellorship, Hitler, all the stuff that he would say back then. I'm not saying he wasn't anti-Semitic. I'm saying that he dialed that shit down because he knew that if he came off at full crazy right off the bat, he wouldn't have been able to secure A, the backing of the German conservatives, and then B, the chancellorship, and then C, the full takeover of the country. He paced himself in that respect, at least well enough to, conquer Germany. So at Vosh, the first anti-Jewish laws from 1919, way before Hitler. Yeah, and you're going to get a first anti-fucking chatter law. I'm going to run that shit through the federal courts, okay? What are you talking? I'm not saying anti-Semitism was invented. Wait, you might be agreeing with me here. Hold on. I think you're agreeing with me. Okay, I'm talking to my people. We're backing off on the legislation. It's going to be okay. The point that I'm trying to get at here is it's essential to understand how damaging fascists are to fascist causes when they're still subject to the whims of public opinion, because they're so fucking bad. Okay, for instance, the CFO, Jimmy Petronas, who said that wokeness is why these corporations are leaving, I would bet you, I think 50-50 this guy's a Nazi. Who says that? You kidding me? Insurance companies are pulling their plans from your state, and your response is, well, this is because of minorities. That's insane. That's not, what are you talking about? But they do it anyway. Gosh, Hitler literally wrote about getting rid of the Jews in my copy. Senator Armstrong, please, anyone who disagrees with me, I'm actually in a trade about this, okay? Go read up on how Adolf Hitler moderated his language and changed what he said as time went forward. He initially proposed that he was a working man's populist. He appealed to the unemployed of Germany during the Great Depression, talked about economic populism, about like provisions to the working class, dropped all of that when he got into power. He played down a lot of his insane ultra-nationalist dedication to the state stuff because, as it turns out, screaming "you must live and die for the fatherland" is not a great thing to do when you're at 5% popularity and people remember you mostly as the guy who got arrested after the beer hall push. The stuff with anti-Semitism, the stuff with race politics, the stuff with all of that crap, okay? All of that was present from the beginning, but got significantly worse when he was no longer just yet another loud populist crazy guy in like the dying Weimar Republic, okay? Please, I'm just at you and look, because if you sincerely believe that beginning Hitler and end Hitler talked the same, you're deluding yourself and denying yourself an education on how fascism develops. This is why I say, like, well, the Republican Party hides their power level, and you can take a look at what Hitler did, and he hid his power level in much the same ways. Not to the same extent, because again, back then, 100 years ago, anti-Semitism, racism, the like, were way more popular than they are today, and for that reason, he didn't have to hide his power level in the same ways people do today, but that doesn't change the fact that the underlying logic is somewhat similar. Okay? That's it. I'm sorry, I'm not arguing with chat anymore. Not arguing. What would 3 Arrows say? 3 Arrows would agree with me, thank you. If we keep this up, I'm gonna start screaming at people like Charlie. Yeah! You know, we gotta... When may I? Oh, bring him in. End segment. Get me out of here. End segment.